Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it may be to you right now.
Viewers of this podcast, my name is Krishna Barot, and it is my immense pleasure to welcome Mr. Guy Cassarchis on the second episode of SchooPed's Online Coffee with Educators. So before we begin the interview, I would like to provide some information about Mr. Guy, whose reputation and experience transcends him. Mr. Guy comes from Geelong, Victoria in Australia, and he describes himself as an Australian school leader. Having 33 years of experience in schools under various roles, Mr. Guy has seen a lot, achieved a lot, and learned a lot. From being the PE teacher, a headmaster, a coordinator, and a principal, he has a plethora of experiences under his wing. And of course, coming from Australia, as we all know, Australians love sports. Mr. Guy plays an avid player of sports, from cricket, hockey, track and field, and many other sports. In his spare time, he has also coached a lot of student athletes in track and field, swimming, and water polo. Some of these students who have gone to represent Australia in the Commonwealth and the Olympics, which is nothing short of amazing, honestly. And a fun fact about Mr. Guy is that he has a pretty easygoing approach towards life and towards many things. But when it's time to step up and chase his endeavors, he is always up and about to win. And currently, he's the principal of the Malaysia campus of Peninsula International School Australia. So, Mr. Guy, welcome to our SchooPed podcast. And is there anything you would like to say about yourself?
No, thank you, Krishna, for the bio and the information. And no, happy to be here and share information with yourself and the listeners.
All right. So now we will get right into the question and answer session. My first question to you, Mr. Guy, is that we all know the definition of a leader. And we must have read it in dictionaries, and we must have read about it in many places. But being a leader is a very subjective thing. It's a very dynamic thing, especially in a field like education. So for someone like you who has many years of experience being a leader, how would you define a good leader?
Okay, Krishna, that's, I mean, there's so much information going around on what is a good leader. Not only in education, but in all industries, I think,
yes.
That are around the world. But I think for me, one of my main areas of looking for good leadership is someone who wants to make a difference. And I guess that's my actual philosophy, and my philosophy statement all revolves around making a difference in the lives of the people that you're working with. Not necessarily, it's not about me, for example. It's about the people who I'm working for. Some leaders are leaders who are the boss, I guess, and they tell people what to do, and people just do it because they have to, or maybe because they're even scared of their boss. But I think a good leader is one that's really respected and gets their hands dirty and leads from the front, and creates more of a team approach, and not this boss, this so-called boss or person that everyone looks up to in regards to, I better do this or I'll get in trouble.
Yes.
So I think some of the main characteristics that I believe we should have as leaders, especially in schools, honesty and integrity is really important. Ability to trust and empower other people to do things, including, when I talk about other people, talk about the teachers, obviously, but also the children, children in leadership positions within schools. So I think they need to have that experience. You need to be a good communicator. You need to be collaborative, and you need to connect with people.
Of course.
You also have to be, in making that difference, you have to have lots of positive energy. You can't be a person who's really quiet or sort of sits back. You've got to be out and about, and I guess we call that the visible leader
yes.
in educational terms. You also have an air of confidence about yourself in what you do.
Yes.
You can't be an sort of person, not sure. You need to make decisions sometimes on the spot. So you've got to have that air of confidence about you so that people look up to you and can come to you knowing that you'll give them the right direction, the right advice most of the time, because you can't always be right all the time. It's impossible. A commitment to and a persistence in what you do to make the school better, make teachers better, and obviously improve students' results.
Yes.
I guess you need to be a lifelong learner as well. So you have to have a willingness to keep learning, unlearn things like technology, for example. Like in my 33 years, you're always like, you learn something, then it disappears and you have to relearn something else. And being an older teacher, it takes us probably a bit more time to pick it up than a young person. But you have to have that willingness to keep learning and relearning.
Yes.
From a principal perspective and a leader, you need to be an entrepreneur as well, because it's a school, but it's a business as well. And you need to grow. You need to grow your student numbers, which then grow your staff numbers, etc. So you have to look at the growth. So entrepreneurship is important. Having intuition is also an important aspect of the job, sort of looking into the future about what, and sort of guessing about what's going to happen. And I'd probably say the last thing would be you have to have an ability to inspire and motivate people to do things.
Right.
So I'd say that'd probably be the most important characteristics. I mean, there's a long list there and you can't do everything. But I think those areas are all pretty important for school leaders to have and to utilize at some point during their leadership. Obviously not all at the same time.
Of course. All right. So you have given a lot of qualities and traits that make a good leader. And like I mentioned before, being a good leader is very subjective. So how would you describe your leadership style? What sets it apart from the rest? And I'm sure that this is something you have developed along the years. So we would like to hear more about it.
Well, my leadership style, I guess, once again, there's a lot of different terms, and I'll run through some of those terms now with you. But basically, for me personally, I have a combination of many of the things I'm about to mention, because it really depends on the situation with what sort of leadership you're going to throw into place. But I can say that my personal style is, as me as a person, I like to be humble. That's very, very important for me. And I believe that I'm a good listener and a good communicator. And I take the time to make sure that I listen to my staff, the students and the parents, to try and focus on areas of the school that may need improvement and or on moving a school forward. So they're some of my personal traits, I guess, which then forms good strong teams to make a school function. But some of these areas that you need to utilise is leadership style is the do what I tell you, which is what we call a coercive style, and that's pretty much pretty similar to an authoritarian style of. And sometimes, as I said, sometimes you have to do these things because you need to get a job done. So, as I said, there is no right or wrong style. The best thing is a combination of everything. Then you've got that authoritarian style, which has come with me. This is what we're going to do. You've got the people come first approach as well. You want to build teams. You want a harmonious school, you want to be friendly, etc. So once again, there's times to use that particular style of leadership. Then you got the democratic style, who, you don't want to always be the person who makes decisions, because the people who own the decisions will allow you or mean that they're actually going to do the job for you. Because when people come to you with ideas, you don't want to take their ideas and do what they want to do. You want to actually embrace their ideas and allow them to run with them. So, that democratic, sure, what do you think? conversational type approach, and then moving on and allowing people to do their job is important as well. There's also a style called the pace setting style, do as I do now. So sometimes you, once again, need to get a job done and you've got a timeline and you have to work within that timeline and you have to take people on your journey with you. So there's that pace getting, then there's the coaching, which is a bit like mentoring people.
Yes, yes.
And then there's actually a really good educator called Michael Fullen that I'm sure you would have heard of. He's got the lead learner. So he also looks at a style whereby you need to be up to date with like teaching and learning,
Yes.
with pedagogy, with information, and so that your staff members, the students in your care, and the mums and dads, when you're talking, they actually respect you because they go, wow, this person actually knows what they're talking about.
Yes.
So I guess I would say that all those sort of styles of leadership are all really important. There's not one is more important than the other.
Yes.
I think the important factor to remember is you need to utilize a different style of leadership for different occasions and different situations that arise on a day-to-day basis. And that way, you know, you'll get through the day, the week, the month, and the year on a successful note.
All right. Well, that is a lot of different traits, and that is actually wonderful because you seem to have mastered, you know, the amalgamation of all of them. And you had mentioned pedagogies. So my next question to you was that I'm sure that through all your years, you must have had a lot of visions of, you know, implementing certain learning and teaching pedagogies in your school, and even today you do. So what is your process of going about and implementing it? Whose help do you take? How do you go about it? What do you learn?
Okay, I think what I've learned and reflected on is as a student, so as well as a principal or headmaster now, I think it's really important that we look back at your own personal journey through school as well.
Yes.
And then I've been fortunate, obviously, to be a dad. So when you've got children at school who have finished school now as well, you know, the conversations you have at the dinner table about their day-to-day experiences at school allow you to keep thinking about, once again, what, you know, what sort of vision should you actually have for your own personal school. So I would say one of my main pedagogical visions would be to make learning fun. Now, and to make the learning environment stimulating.
Yes.
And so what I mean by those two things is fun. There's got to be a connection with the teacher. And when there's a connection with the teacher, there's that engagement in learning. So there could be a subject that's just really dry or really boring. But if the student is connected with the teacher and likes the teacher, they'll actually go to that lesson and they'll learn because they're there for the teacher as well as, you know, the information that they're learning. But the teacher can, their personality can allow the student to learn that mundane piece of work that they have to do. So there is a really important connect between the student and the teacher, but the implementation of vision is that learning must be fun at all times. So when you're preparing your lessons, how can you make it fun and enjoyable and stimulating for the students so they don't go off task and start thinking about other things, staring into space and out the window. So fun is really important. And then your environment needs to be stimulating. And by that, I mean that the classroom, the hallways and the open areas or shared spaces, etc., should have educational information around to stimulate the process of thinking at all times. So to give you an example by that is, for that story is in a classroom, let's say a science classroom, you can actually have the periodic table on the ceiling.
Yes.
Okay. You can have obviously different things related to biology, physics, chemistry, or general science on the walls.
Of course.
You can have outside the classroom, you can have things relating to science as well. And you can even have, you know, on the stairwells, walking up the stairs, you can have information that, you know, that is related to any of the fields of science or mathematics with equations, etc., or it could be English with quotes, or writers of, authors of books, etc., or poets. But basically, the whole idea of a stimulating environment is that wherever you look in the classroom, if you do go daydreaming because the lesson is not fun, you're still learning, because
Yes.
you look at a wall, you look at, you look in the ceiling, you look at the window, because you can actually write on the glass windows with a whiteboard marker.
Yeah.
So everywhere you look, there is learning. So there's a child who's trying to escape learning, but they can't because of the environment.
Wow.
So I think the other three areas that link to that is increasing motivation.
Okay.
Motivation, not only for the student, but for the teacher.
Yes.
Because teachers have a major impact on student learning. So if they're not motivated and their lessons aren't interesting, heaven help the poor children who they're teaching, who will switch off very, very early. So I've got increased motivation as a goal, and as part of my vision. Increasing your student engagement, which I've sort of just mentioned, with the environment and the fun. And you must, as a leader, allow your teachers to be innovative in delivering the curriculum.
Definitely.
Now, that is a real positive impact that the Australian education system has for its teachers. There's a curriculum there, and it's like, okay, well, in the needs of the children, the resources you have in your environment, you put together the units of work, the scope and sequences, and you deliver your lessons with the resources that you have. But in some other countries, and I know here in Malaysia as well, in some international schools, the teacher is given the lesson plan, and you have to teach that lesson using a textbook.
Yes.
So I think, as a school leader, very, very important for one of our goals is to allow the teachers to deliver their own innovative lessons without too much interference, providing all the resources for them. But obviously there's a check and balance at the end of the day too, to make sure that you're fulfilling the requirements of the curriculum. But don't go and tell the poor teacher what they have to teach, how they teach it. And, I don't think that's right. So that would be my vision in regards to the teaching and learning and the implementation of pedagogy through a school.
Yes, definitely. Well,